much understood. And I don't have time to illustrate some of this and see the problems. The cash flow is very straightforward, that the county policy. But there are also other critical statements that need to be. In the IPSAs or IRFS, these are the primary functions up there. But for the public sector, must we stop there? Could we improve by considering budget execution report? That's a statement of appropriation. In some countries, that statement is very important. And in one country, I know in the way we've been developing a new law for public finance, it is a mandatory statement that before Parliament considers the finance bill for the next fiscal year, the Auditor General must report on the budget execution of the previous, of the current financial year, the performance of the budget. But this is not, there's no guidance on the IPSAS on this. And why should we not provide? Statement of the sovereign debt I've already covered, the commitments, government liabilities, and also reporting on the program-based budgeting. So public finances are about public interest. Need more engagement, and it should be focused on reporting on service delivery. And that means that we need not to just restrict ourselves to the traditional private sector reporting. And there's a need for convergence, harmonization, and having more uniform. Keep it simple, stupid. And we have another big problem. In many of the African countries and others in the developing countries, you have very small countries as well, small islands. Must they comply with the IPSAS in full? In the private sector, you have the IFRS for those companies which are listed to stock exchange, and they have to comply with that. But then you also have the small, medium enterprises. They have their own standard, which is kept simple. And I remember when I was having a meeting with the Minister of Finance for Somalia, and he said, Stephen, must we comply with all these complicated standards? Can't we have a more simpler way for a fragile state like Somalia starting to be accountable? So I think for the public sector, I think we need to have two standards. For the big nations like United Kingdom, they have all the resources, they have big money to spend and so forth. But for a small country like Rwanda or Uganda or fragile states like South Sudan, they should also have a standard specific for smaller nations. Keep it simple, more transparent, and so that people can regain trust in the public sector. And above all, we should think more for the public sector. Yes, good practice in the private sector, but we must adapt to the public sector strictly. Not just changing words in the statement, in the standards. Yeah? That instead of calling the statement of this, we should call it in the statement. But we should fundamentally think and make it more. And of course, the challenge now we have this IPSAs or EPSAs, and for goodness sake, I think there should be a move towards convergence and making it simple and not have standards competing with each other. Countries in Africa will be in a dilemma when EPSAS comes on board, and then we have, they will ask, okay, so which one? EPSAS or IFRS? Because UK is on IFRS. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this.
Well, I'm sorry I'm not from the Edelman Trust, but there we are. I'm a colleague of Julian's. If I can try and justify why I'm here, maybe. It's a varied background that's brought me here. I started out life as a civil engineer, and I worked for local government in the UK for a couple of years after graduating, and also worked for my holidays. So that was my first taste of the public sector. Then I became an accountant, and when I qualified, I went to work for, well, what's now part of the Price Waterhouse sort of empire of accountants. And I was seconded into their public sector division, where I spent a few happy months helping to audit local government accounts and civil service accounts. And I must say, I found them utterly confusing. I mean, I'd been schooled in accruals accounting and so on, and trying to understand that actually we're not interested in accruals, we just do cash accounting. And I thought, and anyway, it struck me as quite extraordinary, but it was a different approach. And now we seem to, I haven't really followed the accounting sort of reforms that have taken place in the public sector that much, but I know a lot's happened, and it's not just about cash accounting anymore. Okay, so then I became a group financial controller and company secretary of a couple of public companies in the UK. And then around about 1990, I thought I'd had enough of working for other people, so I had to go trying to work for everyone, basically self-employed, but you end up working for everyone by being self-employed. And I spent most of my time actually working for the National Health Service, which is another public sector body, which is, in a way is run more like private companies and publicly listed companies and local authorities and the public, and government is run. There's a lot in common. You have boards in the normal way, and the accounts actually that hospitals used to produce or health authorities to produce were looked actually quite familiar to someone schooled in from the private sector. I spent my time trying to help audit teams do better jobs and try and help the NHS as a centre trying to improve its approaches to risk management and corporate governance and how to assess control. Fascinating stuff, and I did that for about 10 years, but after a while I realised that the NHS, in order to change, you've really got to want to change. And the NHS wasn't really one of those organisations that wanted to change. And I think after a while I thought I was wasting my time. So then I came to ACCA. And I've been here for 12 years now, and in that time I have become more global. I've been to Pakistan a couple of times, I've been to Uganda a couple of times, and ACCA has sent me all over the place, which has been fascinating. Luckily, it sends Gillian all over the place these days rather than me, so I get the chance to stay at home and think, which I found very useful. And that's what I want to talk about, really, is some of the thinking that I've been doing, with the help of people like Michael, whom I've known for probably at least 10 years, I should think. And I've been very fortunate working for ACCA to have actually known people like Michael, a great bunch of people to exchange ideas from. And the paper I want to talk about, in a way, it's I suppose it's about the accumulation of sort of 10 or 12 years of thinking about things and a lifetime before that. And the paper that we're about to launch, it's a consultation, and it's called Creating Value Through Governance, and the subtitle, Towards a New Accountability. And we'll be launching it as a consultation, and I'm hoping that